Jinshin slammed into the dungeon wall, blood trickling from his mouth. The mutated beast's single blow had sent him flying. He couldn't believe it. Him, the #1 mage cultivator in the world, on the verge of death against this monster. Struggling to stand, Jinshin's heart leaped when he spotted familiar faces. Guijie and Suzy Hui. Relief washed over him. "Help me," he called out, his voice cracking with desperation. Guijie approached, her eyes gleaming in a way that sent a chill down his spine. She knelt beside him, grasping his trembling hand. "I never thought you'd actually come looking for the Pisces pendant, just because I asked you to. Always a good guy, huh?" Her smile twisted into something cruel as she slipped his storage ring from his finger. "Consider this my final gift from you. I'll always remember how generous you were." Jinshin's eyes widened. Before he could process what was happening, she pulled away, and right there, in front of his broken body, Guijie leaned into Suzy Hui, their lips meeting in a mocking kiss. His heart shattered. "No, this can't be real," he whispered, his vision blurring. But it was real. As if reading his thoughts, Guijie pulled away from Suzy Hui and looked back at him. "We're in love, Jinshin. You've always been a nuisance, so we've come to get rid of you." Pain and betrayal overwhelmed him, a wave of agony far worse than his physical injuries. These two, the people he trusted more than anyone, had turned on him. With that, the darkness took him. But just as his consciousness faded, something unexpected stirred around his neck. The Pisces pendant. A rush of energy surged through him, forcing his spirit back into his body. The next thing he knew, Jinshin's eyes shot open to the blaring sound of an alarm. He slapped the clock off with a groan. "What the?" His breath caught as he glanced around. He was in a dorm room, his dorm room, back at university. "What? How am I still alive?" "I was killed by the torch dragon," his heart pounded. He quickly checked the date. August 7th, 2040. The day before the start of the game, 10 years ago. Realization hit him like a lightning strike. "I've been reborn?" Memories flooded back. There was a rumor in the 8 Wastelands. The supreme divine artifact, the Pisces pendant, could revive its wearer. He never believed it, but the pendant, he had kept it around his neck instead of in his storage ring. That decision saved his life. If Guijie had taken it with the rest of his treasures, he would be dead for good. His fist clenched. He had loved Guijie for 10 years. He had trusted Suzy Hui like a brother. And in return, they had stolen everything from him, his wealth, his treasures, and left him to die. But not this time. The heavens had given him a second chance, and he swore they would feel the same betrayal tenfold. Jinshin's eyes hardened. "This time, I'll make you both pay." Jinshin sat on the edge of his bed, still processing his rebirth, when his phone buzzed. Miss Frenzy flashed across the screen. He answered with a smirk. "Long time no see, Miss Frenzy." "Long time no see, my ass," she shot back. "We had hot pot together yesterday." Jinshin chuckled. It had been years since he'd heard her voice, but to her, only a day had passed. She didn't know that, though. "Not yet. I've got something big to tell you," Miss Frenzy continued. "You might want to sit down for this, and don't freak out, okay?" He already knew what was coming. 10 years ago, on this exact day, she had made the same call, telling him she'd seen Guijie with another man. Back then, he didn't believe her. He cut her off, blinded by loyalty to Guijie. But this time, he was ready. "Go ahead." "Wait, are you apologizing?" she asked, clearly thrown off by his calm tone. "Just a little emotional, that's all," Jinshin replied, keeping his voice steady. Miss Frenzy sounded confused, but she pushed on. "Look, I don't want to shock you, but I just saw Guijie. She was with another guy, kissing him, and she climbed into his sports car right after." There was a pause. "I understand," Jinshin said simply. The silence on her end was almost comical. "Hold on, that's it? No yelling? No arguing? I'm serious, Jinshin. She's cheating on you." "I believe you," he said, his voice calm but with a weight that implied something deeper. "But there's something I need to tell you." "Okay, now you're freaking me out. Why are you being so calm? Are you okay?" Jinshin shifted gears, ready to drop a different bombshell. "You know the game 8 Wastelands, right?" "Of course. Everyone's talking about it. It's all over the place." "Good. I'm thinking about going pro in that game." Miss Frenzy paused, clearly taken aback. "Wait, you? A professional esports player? Are you serious?" Jinshin smiled to himself. "More serious than you think. No one realizes it yet, but 8 Wastelands isn't just some virtual reality game. In 5 years, it'll merge with reality. Everything in the game. The treasures, abilities, even the NPCs and bosses. They'll all descend into the real world." Well, if anyone can pull it off, it's you. You've always been insanely good at games. Jinshin leaned back, taking a deep breath. I'm serious, Miss Frenzy. I'm moving out of my dorm soon. I'll rent a place and devote myself entirely to the game. Miss Frenzy was quiet for a moment, clearly surprised. You're really okay, aren't you? I was worried after, the whole cheating thing. Jinshin smiled faintly. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for the support. As she was about to hang up, he quickly interrupted. Wait, don't hang up yet. Why? She asked, sounding confused. He hesitated, glancing at his billing records. I went over my limit yesterday. I kind of need a favor. I maxed out my account. Think you could lend me some cash? Miss Frenzy immediately shut him down. No way. I'm broke too. Thanks to you spending a fortune on that fancy gift for Guijie yesterday. Remember that? Before he could respond, she hung up. Jinshin groaned, wishing he had been reborn just a day earlier, so he could have saved the cash. But then his phone buzzed, a message from Miss Frenzy. She'd sent him 10,000 yuan with a voice note. Here's my gym membership for a few years. Pay me back soon, or I'll turn you into my punching bag if I can't work out. Jinshin laughed, recording a quick reply. Don't worry, I'll pay you back. Promise. Night fell, and Jinshin sat in front of his screen, watching the clock. 1 second to midnight. He clenched his fist, excitement pulsing through him. This is it. As the clock struck midnight, the ring on his hand activated, glowing softly. He raised it to his eyes, feeling the familiar rush as the game system synced with him. Moments later, he was logged into the game, 8 Wastelands. Finally, after 10 long years, he had returned to the place where his journey began. Jinshin materialized in the beginner's area. Around him, players marveled at the beauty of the AI avatar that welcomed them. But Jinshin wasn't fooled. He knew the AI wasn't just some simple guide. It was the first real challenge. I've learned my lesson. This time, I'm prepared. While most players were captivated by the AI avatar's beauty, with some openly declaring their desire to make her their in-game wife, Jinshin could only shake his head in disappointment. Idiots, he thought, watching as their improper comments grew louder. Lady Manhwa isn't someone you can joke about like that. The noise escalated, and suddenly, Manhwa's serene expression shifted. Without warning, she raised her hand, and a portal appeared beneath the rowdiest players. They were sucked in before they could react, vanishing in a swirl of light. Panic spread among the others. They never thought an NPC could get angry. Jinshin mused unfazed. He knew exactly where that portal led. If they were lucky, they'd face mere confinement. If not, their attributes would be permanently reduced. Approaching Manhwa with a respectful nod, Jinshin bowed slightly. Sister Manhwa, he greeted politely. His actions were a stark contrast to the chaos around him. Manhwa's eyes softened, pleased by his demeanor. Do you truly wish to step onto the path of cultivation and become an immortal? She asked. Jinshin smiled, answering with confidence. Yes, my name is Jinshin, and I humbly request your blessing on this path. Manhwa considered him for a moment, then nodded. Very well, mortal. I shall bestow upon you a good fate. Jinshin's heart raced. A new innate talent. In his previous life, his talent, business prodigy, had been more of a burden than a blessing. Sure, it gave him a 10% discount on purchases, but it became useless later in the game. He braced himself, half expecting to receive the same lackluster talent again. But as the familiar system notification appeared, his eyes widened in shock. Innate talent. Alter fate. Jinshin's breath caught in his throat as the details unfolded before him. This is different. The talent came with 3 abilities. 1. Born against heaven's will. His innate attributes would all be maxed out instantly, but with a cost. Each time he died, his attributes would decrease by 10%. 2. Against heaven's law. After breaking through to a new realm, his attributes would be doubled. However, it came with a steep price. He would have to face a heavenly tribulation, and if he failed, his soul would be erased. 3. Luck against heaven's will. With every breakthrough, he would receive a random new talent as a reward. But there was a catch. Each realm breakthrough would require him to meet a heavenly great condition. Jinshin stared in shock at his new talent, Alter Fate. It was undeniably powerful, but equally dangerous. The greater the risks, the better the rewards, he thought, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. Manhwa then prompted him. Now, choose your avatar. A series of avatars appeared before him, each with its own unique traits. Jinshin took his time, scrolling through the options. They may all look similar, but their stats can vary greatly, he reminded himself, thinking back to his past mistakes. In his previous life, he had chosen a goofy-looking avatar with an afro out of sheer boredom. Being handsome in reality had made him want to change. But soon after entering the game, he realized how much that decision had hurt his progress. Players with high charisma gained favor with NPCs, received better quests, and even had opportunities to dual cultivate with powerful NPCs. Not this time, Jinshin thought, determined to correct his past blunder. After a few minutes, he found it a model with the highest charisma among all the basic avatars. This time, I'm going to be the most charming player in the game. Manhwa smiled, clearly pleased with his choice. Now, choose your starting location, she said, presenting him with a map of 4 lands: Yuehua, Yongning, Huafeng, and Musian. Each land corresponded to one of the 4 main professions in 8 wastelands. Jinshin studied the options carefully. Yongning was perfect for magic cultivation. Yuehua specialized in medical cultivation. Musian was suited for weapon cultivation. Huafeng focused on body cultivation. In my last life, I struggled because of my weak start. Not this time, Jinshin thought. He wasn't going to rush this decision. As he weighed his options, a system window opened, displaying his newly updated status. Innate talent, alter fate. Sect, none. Profession, none. Reputation, 0. Cultivation, immortal. Innate core bone, 100 max. Innate spirit, 100 max. Innate comprehension, 100 max. Innate charisma, 100 max. Innate luck, 100 max. Jinshin's heart swelled with satisfaction. His core bone, spirit, comprehension, charisma, and luck, all maxed out. These innate attributes would shape his journey. Core bone determined his potential for weapon and body cultivation, while spirit influenced magic and medical cultivation. Comprehension would help him learn skills faster, and his charisma meant NPCs would be eager to assist him. This time, with my attributes maxed from the start, becoming the #1 cultivator is just a matter of time. He smirked, feeling the excitement building. The game world was his to conquer. Jinshin reflected on his past mistakes. Magic cultivation is great for team battles, but terrible in solo fights. Last time I got killed way too easily. He clenched his fists, remembering how he chose magic cultivation in his previous life to impress Guijie. Not this time. This time, I'm doing it for me. Without hesitation, he selected Musian, the continent best suited for weapon cultivation. If I want to be #1, I'll face attacks from all sides. Sword cultivation is perfect. It's unmatched in single target damage. Jinshin smirked. This life, I'll ride the wind with my sword and conquer the world of martial arts. As soon as he confirmed his choice, the system teleported him to Musian Continent's beginner's village. The moment he arrived, nostalgia washed over him as he saw the sea of new players. Some were begging for high-level players to carry them through farms. Others were shamelessly flirting, and most were still in awe at how realistic the game felt. It's been so long since I've seen this many people in one place. Nearby, a crowd of players swarmed an old man, assuming he was an NPC with a hidden mission. Jinshin shook his head. Idiots. He chuckled to himself. There's no way a hidden mission would be handed out by such an obvious NPC. Letting the others waste their time, he calmly headed for the sword set, following the route he knew by heart. Suddenly, a female NPC approached him. She smiled and introduced herself as Chuan Yang, the owner of the tailor shop in the village. Her presence caused a stir among the players, who were now burning with jealousy. NPCs didn't usually initiate conversations with players, and yet, she was talking to Jinshin of her own accord. I can arrange a special mission for you, she offered, wrapping her arm around his shoulder. Her voice softened as she moved closer. You see, I've been alone ever since my husband passed away 5 years ago. If you find the quest too difficult, I can help you complete it. Jinshin froze for a second, taken aback. The power of maxed-out charisma is no joke. He hadn't expected it to attract an NPC so quickly. If he completed the quest and raised his favorability with the widow, there was a high chance she'd offer him other opportunities in the future. Maybe even dual cultivation. He mused, momentarily tempted by the idea. But he quickly snapped back to reality. No, I didn't come back to mess around with beauty distractions. My goal is to be the #1 sword cultivator. Clearing his throat, he politely declined. I've got other things to handle for now, but I'll come find you if I get the chance. Chuan Yang smiled, letting him go. I'll be waiting. Don't forget about the mission. As he walked away, other players looked at him in shock. They couldn't believe he'd turned down a mission from an NPC, something they would have jumped at. Jinshin ignored them. I can't waste time on side missions. The real opportunity lies ahead, he thought, his eyes locked on a rundown shop in the distance. Jinshin arrived at the rundown blacksmith shop. A few players were already leaving, shaking their heads in disappointment. Don't bother going in, one of them said. There's just a blacksmith inside, and he can't even speak. Probably deaf or something. Yeah, total waste of time, added another, clearly annoyed. Better head to the village entrance. I heard someone there's giving out real missions. Jinshin smiled politely, thanking them for the advice. I'm just taking a look around. As he walked inside, ignoring their warnings, the players grumbled behind him, upset that he didn't listen, but quickly lost interest, deciding to chase after the potential mission at the village entrance. Fools, Jinshin thought. They don't realize the blacksmith is the most important NPC in this village. Inside, the blacksmith was completely absorbed in his work, oblivious to the players' complaints. His hammer struck the metal again and again, but something was off. The weapon he was crafting wasn't taking shape. Frustration was etched on the man's face as he worked, trying to figure out the issue. Jinshin immediately knew the problem. The fire's too weak. The temperature isn't high enough. Sensing an opportunity to gain the blacksmith's favor, he quietly stepped forward and began to help stoke the forge, pulling the bellows to increase the flames. The blacksmith paused, noticing the sudden change. As the fire roared back to life, realization dawned on him. He nodded in appreciation as he resumed his work, the weapon finally beginning to take shape under his skilled hands. After a few minutes of hammering, the blade gleamed brightly, perfect at last. With a wide grin, the blacksmith turned to Jinshin. Thank you for helping with the bellows. My apprentice isn't around today, so the forge wasn't properly tended to. You saved me a lot of trouble. Jinshin gave a humble nod. This is exactly what I was aiming for. The blacksmith walked over to a rack of weapons. As thanks, you can borrow any weapon here for a day, he offered. But remember, you'll need to return it by tomorrow. Most players would have been disappointed by such a short-term reward, likely seeing it as a waste of time. But Jinshin, being a veteran of the game, knew better. He confidently chose a simple iron sword, normal grade, with a strength of 3. For beginners, this might seem underwhelming, but I know what happens when I return it. The blacksmith watched his choice with approval. Good pick, he said. Now, I'll give you another opportunity. If you can bring me 10 venomous fangs from green pit vipers, I'll have something special for you. Jinshin accepted the mission, marking the official start of his sword cultivation journey. Outside, the players who had mocked him earlier were shocked to see him walk out of the blacksmith shop holding a weapon. Hey, how did you get that sword? One of them asked, curiosity piqued. Jinshin smirked, thinking fast. Oh, it's simple, he said confidently. The blacksmith just broke up with his girlfriend. He's heartbroken. All you have to do is sing him a love song, and if you touch his heart, he'll reward you with a weapon. The players' eyes lit up, amazed at how easy the task sounded. Is that it? One of them asked. Yep, Jinshin said, trying to hold back his laughter. Just make sure your singing moves him. Eager to get their hands on a weapon, the players immediately gathered outside the blacksmith's workshop, breaking into awkward love songs, each trying to outsing the other. Jinshin stepped back, enjoying the ridiculous sight from afar. Inside, the blacksmith's face contorted in anger. He was already stressed from the day's work, and now a group of players was serenading him with off-key love songs. He stormed out, hammer in hand, yelling, "Get lost!" The players, confused, mistook his frustration for some hidden signal. "He must be testing us," one player said excitedly. "Out, all of you," the blacksmith bellowed, "before I use this hammer on your heads." That did the trick. The players scattered in all directions, realizing they'd been played. Furious, they swore to find Jinshin and get their revenge. But by that time, Jinshin was already deep in the bamboo forest, well ahead of them. As Jinshin navigated the dense woods, he stayed alert, knowing the green pit vipers could strike at any moment. Sure enough, one suddenly lunged from the shadows, but Jinshin's reflexes kicked in. With a swift swing of his sword, the snake was taken down in a single blow. His cultivation increased by 3, and to his surprise, the viper dropped several items: a normal-grade green viper bow, a viper sword, and a snakeskin storage bag. Is this because of my maxed-out luck? He wondered, knowing that the game's equipment drop rate was notoriously low. He shrugged it off and continued hunting, curious to see how much more loot he could gather. By the time he finished clearing the snake-infested forest, Jinshin had a bag full of equipment, far more than he expected. Apart from the 10 venomous fangs he needed for the mission, he had collected over 100 poisonous arrows and a significant amount of copper coins. Satisfied with his haul, Jinshin headed back to the village. Upon reaching the blacksmith shop, he handed over the 10 venomous fangs. The blacksmith inspected them and nodded approvingly. "Good quality. You've done well," he said, reaching into a drawer. "Here, as promised." He handed Jinshin a sealed envelope. "This is it?" Jinshin thought excitedly. The envelope contained an invitation to join the sword sect, a crucial step toward his goal of becoming the strongest sword cultivator. "Has anyone else accepted this mission?" Jinshin asked, curiosity getting the better of him. The blacksmith shook his head. "You're the only one so far." Jinshin smiled, knowing he was already ahead of the crowd. While other players wasted time chasing trivial missions and figuring out basic mechanics, he was laser-focused on his path. With the invitation in hand, Jinshin left the shop. His next move was clear: become a disciple of the sword sect as soon as possible. Before heading to the sword sect, Jinshin made his way to the market to sell the loot he had gathered from slaying the green pit vipers. His prized item was the rare green viper bow, something that had a high demand but was incredibly scarce in the server. Standing in the middle of the bustling market, Jinshin made his announcement loud and clear. "I'm selling the only green viper bow in the entire server. Highest bidder wins. I wouldn't be parting with it, but I need the cash to marry a wife." The crowd immediately stirred. Players from all over the area rushed in, eager to grab this rare item. The bidding started at 1,500 and rapidly climbed. Jinshin watched, amused, as the numbers flew higher. Then, out of nowhere, a female player stepped forward and offered 50,000 in one bold move. She was accompanied by several others, her presence demanding attention. No one knew who she or her group were, nor which guild they represented. "I only pay in cash," she said, her tone confident. "The money will be transferred to your account immediately." Jinshin, impressed by the bold bid, was just about to close the deal when another voice interrupted. 60,000. The new bidder walked forward with a calm, commanding presence. It was Wang Jinghao, the president of the Wanshur Guild, one of the most powerful groups in the game. A murmur spread through the crowd. Jinshin's expression shifted. Wang Jinghao already? He hadn't expected to run into the guild leader this early in the game. In his previous life, Wanshur had tried to recruit him after he broke into the top 10 leaderboards. When Jinshin refused, Wang Jinghao held a grudge that cost him dearly. Wang Jinghao smiled. "You must be quite something, getting a rare weapon right after the server launched. I admire your ability. Since you're selling this to earn money to marry, let me cover the entire amount. Consider it a friendly gesture." Jinshin politely declined. "I appreciate the offer, but a gentleman doesn't accept charity. I'm just here to sell my item, not looking for any favors. I hope you understand." Using the marrying a wife excuse was a mistake, Jinshin thought, slightly regretting his earlier words. Wang Jinghao laughed lightly. "Of course, I understand, but you have resolve and skill, and our guild could use a bow like that. I'm more than willing to buy it." As he reached for the bow, the female player from earlier raised her bid again. 70,000, she said calmly, completely ignoring Wang Jinghao's presence. The crowd gasped. No one dared to go against Wang Jinghao, especially not in such a bold manner. The tension was palpable as the bidding war reignited. Jin Chun's eyes gleamed, enjoying the battle of wits and wealth. He was curious about the mysterious woman and her background. Which guild is she from? He wondered. She's not giving Wang any face at all. The bidding escalated further, with Wang Jinghao determined not to back down. The price soared to 300,000, then 400,000, and finally hit a staggering 500,000. Wang was visibly strained, caught between his desire for the bow and the embarrassment of being outbid in public. Sensing Wang's frustration, Jin Chun smirked inwardly. Let's see how far this goes. Wang Jinghao, now desperate, attempted to use his guild's reputation as leverage. "Do you know who I am?" he said, his voice filled with authority. "I'm the president of the Wanshi Guild. You should think carefully before bidding further." But the mysterious lady remained unfazed. Her calm demeanor and readiness to spend such a hefty sum on beginners' equipment only fueled speculation among the onlookers. Players whispered among themselves, convinced that her background must be extraordinary for her to challenge the young master of Wanshi Guild so openly. The lady raised her eyebrow, unfazed by Wang Jinghao's threats. "The highest bidder wins. How is making an offer going against someone? Are you trying to say others can't buy the things you want?" Wang Jinghao was momentarily speechless. He hadn't expected such a bold response. Realizing he was up against a formidable opponent, he decided to withdraw from the bidding war. But just as he was about to leave, Jin Shin stepped in. "I've long heard of Wanshi Guild's reputation," Jin Shin said smoothly. "If you're willing to pay the 500,000, I'll sell the bow to you. In exchange, I hope to earn your guild's support in the future." Wang Jinghao paused, studying Jin Shin's face for any sign of deceit. "Do you really mean that?" Jin Shin nodded confidently. "Yes." After a moment's consideration, Wang Jinghao accepted the deal. "Fine. If you run into any trouble, Wanshi Guild will be there to help you." He then asked for Jin Shin's account number and transferred the money without hesitation. Jin Shin hid his satisfaction behind a polite smile. "Perfect," he thought. "I've left a good impression for now, and I can leech off him later." As Wang Jinghao turned to leave, he glanced at the lady, smirking. "I won't hold a grudge because you're beautiful, but I hope you've learned your lesson. You should consider joining my guild." Jin Shin chuckled to himself. What an idiot, spending 500,000 just to save face. He knew that once Wang Jinghao used the bow, he'd realize that the poisonous arrows were limited. Even worse, he'd waste hours on annoying beginner missions, burning time and energy on an item that wasn't worth it. But for now, Wang Jinghao was clueless and even grateful to Jin Shin. Meanwhile, the lady's temper flared. "You're pathetic," she snapped, glaring at Jin Shin. Bowing down to the powerful like a dog. With her group in tow, she stormed off, clearly enraged by Jin Shin's betrayal. Jin Shin frowned slightly, realizing he might have taken things too far. "I really pissed him off. I need to find a way to repay them." A few hours later, in the wild boar forest, the lady led her group on a hunting mission. "Split up," she ordered. "Each of you find and kill 2 wild boars. Let's finish this quickly." The team dispersed into the forest, charging off to complete their mission. As the lady prepared to move, a figure appeared behind her. It was Jin Shin. The lady narrowed her eyes at Jin Shin, her suspicion evident. "Why did you follow us all the way here?" Jin Shin smiled, unfazed. "I'd like to speak with you privately. Just 2 minutes, that's all." She wasn't as angry with him as before, mostly because she suspected that he had been caught up in the reputation of the Wanshi Guild. After all, she had noticed that Jin Shin and Wang Jinghao didn't seem familiar with each other. Deciding to give him one more chance, she nodded slightly, willing to hear him out. "I have top-secret information," Jin Shin said, his voice lowering conspiratorially. "Information that could give your guild a serious edge over other players. But it'll cost you 500,000. The lady crossed her arms, skepticism written all over her face. And why didn't you sell this important information to Wang Jinghao earlier? He was practically begging to support you. Wouldn't it have been more beneficial to sell it to him? Jinshin smirked, confidence oozing from him. Wang Jinghao isn't worthy of supporting me. I was just playing along to get rid of him. He's a nobody, no power, no real money. I've got no choice but to endure him to survive for now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, Jinshin thought to himself. Since she clearly hates Wang Jinghao, maybe there's a chance we could work together. The lady eyed him cautiously, still skeptical. His attitude toward Wang Jinghao changed a little too quickly, she thought. So, do you want the information or not? Jinshin pressed. He flashed his account number on his screen. Once you pay, I'll give you everything. I'm no scammer. She hesitated, weighing her options. What if he's telling the truth? If this information is real, it'd be a missed opportunity. After a brief pause, she decided to take the gamble. With a tap, she transferred the money to his account. Jinshin grinned, inwardly celebrating. $1 million already, and I've just started the game. Perfect. While money will become useless once the game merges with reality, it's crucial for building my future for now. Once the payment went through, Jinshin leaned in, lowering his voice. Stop killing the wild boars. Go back and accept a mission from the blacksmith. The lady's eyes widened in outrage. Are you kidding me? You're trying to scam me. Everyone knows the blacksmith doesn't give missions. Her hand moved toward her weapon, thoughts racing. Could he be working with Wang Jinghao? Was this whole thing a setup? Anger flared, and her mind was made up. She'd make sure Jinshin didn't leave the wild boar forest alive. Just as the lady was about to unsheath her sword in anger, Jinshin quickly intervened. Wait, the reason you haven't gotten a mission from the blacksmith is because you're doing it wrong. She hesitated, still gripping her sword, eyeing him suspiciously. Jinshin continued calmly. To get a mission from the blacksmith, you have to help him blow his bellows for 5 minutes while he's working. Only then will he offer you the mission. If you're still unsure about the information, let one of your subordinates try it. But do it discreetly. If too many people find out, the information becomes worthless. The lady remained silent, processing his words. Jinshin leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. And the mission? That's not the important part. It's the reward that matters. The sword sect invitation. The lady's eyes widened, recognizing the significance. Jinshin smiled. Once you have the invitation, you'll know where the sword sect is, and that's your ticket to joining them. I said what I needed to. Whether you act on it or not, that's up to you. As Jinshin turned to leave, the lady called after him. Wait, why sell this information to me? Why not keep it for yourself? Jinshin chuckled and, without missing a beat, replied, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're quite sexy. For a brief moment, the lady was caught off guard, her cheeks reddening ever so slightly. But the flirtatious moment was cut short when her group members came sprinting towards them, panic clear on their faces. We're screwed, one of the girls shouted. We accidentally bumped into the boss. The lady's eyes widened as she saw the massive wild boar charging towards them, far larger than the others they had encountered. Retreat, she commanded. We don't have enough people to take down a boss like that. But before they could scatter, Jinshin stepped forward, a confident grin on his face. Your luck's actually pretty good, running into the biggest boss in the beginner's village. Since you're all backing down, I'll take it on myself. Everyone was stunned by his boldness. You're gonna fight the Wild Boar King alone? One of the girls asked in disbelief. Jinshin casually turned back toward the lady. Mind if I borrow your sword? Sold my bow, remember? Without hesitation, she tossed her sword to him. Do whatever you want, but I'm not helping you. If you're that eager to die, it's on you. Jinshin caught the sword with a smirk. Thanks. One of the girls sighed, clearly concerned. He's just throwing his life away. Another added, maybe he's trying to impress our leader. Thinks he can hit on her by showing off. The lady, now blushing, snapped at her. Shut up before I beat you. At the same time, Jinshin was locked in a fierce battle with the Wild Boar King. He quickly realized he was in trouble. The sword he borrowed wasn't strong enough. If only he had held on to the bow a little longer, this fight would have been over by now. No matter how many times he struck the boar, its HP barely dropped. Even when he aimed for its weak points, the damage was minimal. Frustrated, Jin Shun changed his approach. No point in fighting this thing head-on, he thought, eyes narrowing. He knew it was time to use his brains instead of brute force. With a smirk, he turned and sprinted away. The girls watching from a distance assumed he had given up. One of them chuckled. "Look at him run. It's kind of cute, but he's not getting away. No chance." The lady sighed, shaking her head. No one asked him to show off in the first place. But he's still a beginner. It's fine if he dies a few times. Maybe it'll teach him to stop bragging. Meanwhile, Jinshin was nearly at a dead end, a wall rising up in front of him. But just as the boar charged toward him, he performed a wall tap, using the momentum to leap out of the way. The wild boar king slammed headfirst into the wall, taking heavy damage from both the impact and the rocks that tumbled down on top of it. The girls gasped in shock. Did he just make the boar hurt itself? One of them muttered in disbelief. Jinshin saw his chance. The boar was severely weakened, panting heavily, and barely able to stand. Without wasting a second, he dashed forward, landing multiple critical strikes on its battered body. The boar, enraged, launched a final, desperate charge at him. Jinshin was caught off guard, not expecting it to still have any fight left. But his reflexes kicked in. He dodged the attack at the last second and countered with a swift strike to its horn, shattering it and dropping the boar's HP even further. Realizing this was the moment to finish things, Jinshin leaped onto the boar's back. Channeling all his strength, he filled his sword with chi and drove it straight into the creature's skull. With a final roar, the wild boar king collapsed. A notification flashed before Jinshin's eyes. Cultivation level increased to 7. Chi refining stage. He grinned in satisfaction. Reaching the chi refining stage meant he had officially become a cultivator. But there was more. Another notification appeared. Fate-altering talent activated. Innate talent against Heaven's law has doubled your attributes. Jinshin's heart raced. His gamble had paid off. His cultivation had skyrocketed far faster than he expected. And it was all thanks to his luck and running into the wild boar king. But then, another message appeared. Fate-altering talent activated. New random talent granted by Born Against Heaven's Will. Jinshin's eyes widened as the notification flashed in front of him. Random talent confirmed. Seed of Vitality granted. Vitality increased by 10%. Can be upgraded 3 times. His heart raced with excitement. This was the perfect reward for someone like him, fragile in the early stages of cultivation. While his attributes had already doubled thanks to his talent, the added boost in vitality was like a lifeline. Most cultivators at the chi refining stage only had around 10,000 HP. Now, Jinshin had 20,000.
Another notification popped up. Congratulations! You are the first player to kill a boss in the beginner's village in 8 wastelands. Would you like to hide your name? Jinshin smirked. No reason to hide, he replied confidently. In an instant, his achievement was broadcasted to every player in the game. Lin Jinshin has slain the first boss in the beginner's village. Reward, 200 reputation points and 1 point of innate luck. Players across the game were stunned. Someone already killed the boss? The game just started. Guilds began speculating. Some thought Jinshin belonged to a major guild and had used a human wave strategy to overwhelm the boss, with him landing the final hit. Others believed he was just incredibly skilled. Meanwhile, the lady couldn't believe her eyes. He actually did it. He really killed the boar by himself? Jinshin's rewards started rolling in. Spiritual grade Crimson Cloud Sword, Spiritual grade Illuminating Staff, and a spiritual grade technique, Shadow Step. He had expected good drops thanks to his max luck, but this was beyond even his expectations. Suddenly, the sky darkened and thunder rumbled ominously. A new notification appeared. Heavenly tribulation will descend in 30 minutes. Please prepare and proceed with caution. Jinshin froze. He instantly remembered the side effect of his Alter Fate talent. Whenever he broke through a stage, a heavenly tribulation would be summoned. If he failed to survive it, his soul would be erased from existence. Damn it! I knew this was coming, he muttered under his breath. There was no time to waste. He had to find a powerful expert, someone who could help him survive the tribulation. Just as he was about to make a run for it, The lady approached him again. Wait, can we be friends? She asked, her tone much softer than before. I'd like to buy any equipment you find in the future. I'll offer you a fair price, I promise. Jinshin quickly flashed his ID to the lady. Add me, he said with a grin before dashing off. I've got something urgent to take care of. The lady blinked, stunned at his sudden exit. What's so urgent that he's running like his life depends on it? She wondered aloud. Does he think we're scarier than the Wild Boar King? Meanwhile, Jinshin sprinted non-stop, his heart racing as fast as his legs. He finally arrived at the entrance of the sect, panting heavily. His thoughts were frantic. Please let there be an expert here. Someone who can help me survive this tribulation. Without hesitation, he shouted, Disciple Lin Jinshin is here to seek a master. One of the sect disciples raised an eyebrow, puzzled by Jinshin's frantic pace. What's he running from? Looks like he's rushing to be reincarnated. Suddenly, the sky darkened, clouds swirled, and thunder cracked ominously overhead. The sect disciples glanced up, their expressions shifting from confusion to alarm. Moments ago, the sky had been clear. The sect leader, a commanding figure with an enchanting aura, arrived on the scene. Her very presence seemed to demand respect, and even the most stoic disciple felt a shiver. What's causing this disturbance? She asked, her voice calm but authoritative. The disciples greeted her with bowed heads. Sect leader, the sky changed without warning, one of them explained. The sect leader's eyes narrowed. This is a heavenly tribulation, she said. Which disciple or elder is attempting a breakthrough? Everyone shook their heads. No one knew. Suddenly, Jinshin's desperate voice echoed through the courtyard. Please, great masters, save me, he shouted, stumbling forward. The lightning above crackled ominously, fully charged and ready to strike. Jinshin, trembling, thrust the sect leader's letter forward, praying for a miracle. He knew his current abilities were nowhere near enough to survive the heavenly tribulation. The sect leader's eyes widened. A heavenly tribulation? At the chi refining stage? This was unheard of. Just as the first bolt of lightning was about to strike Jinshin, the sect leader raised her hand, forming a powerful protective barrier around him. The lightning struck the barrier, dispersing harmlessly into the sky. The weather returned to normal in an instant, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Jinshin exhaled in relief, his legs shaking from the adrenaline. Saved. If I had died, I would have had to restart the game, missing so many crucial opportunities. The elders, who had gathered around, looked at Jinshin with awe. Someone at the chi refining stage summoned a heavenly tribulation? Impossible, one elder exclaimed. This is the first time we've witnessed something like this, another elder murmured. He must be extraordinary. Elder Chiyue, a powerful figure with a piercing gaze, stepped forward, sizing Jinshin up. A genius like this, if he were to become an elder in the future, his master would gain immense prestige. Without hesitation, Elder Chiyue was the first to make her offer. Lin Jinshin, she said, her voice carrying both warmth and authority, become my disciple, and I promise to provide you with all the resources you need to cultivate. You will lack for nothing. Elder Qingsong stepped forward, a smirk on his face. Elder Chiyue, you're a female cultivator. It's not convenient for you to teach a male disciple. Let me handle him. It's more suitable for me. Elder Chiyue's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. Qingsong, you've already got plenty of disciples. Why are you trying to snatch this one from me? Her voice dripped with irritation. The tension between the two elders was palpable, and the other disciples watched, eager to see what would happen next. Meanwhile, Jinshin could hardly contain his excitement. Just as I thought, joining a sect is the best move. Not only can they help me with the tribulation, but now I've got multiple elders fighting to accept me as their disciple. I've really struck gold here. Despite his internal thrill, he reminded himself to play it cool. I can't seem too eager. Gotta maintain the right impression. Before either Elder Chiyue or Qingsong could argue further, the sect leader, Long Fei Yin, raised her hand. Enough. The two elders fell silent immediately, stunned by the command in her voice. The sect leader's gaze swept across them before she spoke again. I will accept Lin Jinshin as my direct disciple. A ripple of shock went through the gathered elders and disciples. The sect leader herself? She never takes on disciples. They exchanged glances, realizing just how exceptional Jinshin must be. Jinshin's heart skipped a beat as he heard her words. The sect leader wants me as her disciple? Long Fei Yin turned to Jinshin, her expression as cold as ever. Lin Jinshin, Do you accept to become my direct disciple and cultivate within the inner hall? At that moment, Jin Shun received a system notification. You have triggered the greatest opportunity within Tun and Sect. Accept Lung Feiyin as your master? The choice was obvious. Without hesitation, Jin Shin knelt down, bowing deeply. I accept you as my master, sect leader. A satisfied nod from Long Feiyin followed. Very well. She then gestured for Jin Shen to follow her, and as they walked together towards the inner hall, Jin Shun couldn't help but marvel at her cold yet graceful demeanor.
The Sword Palace is the core of Tianyin's sect, she explained as they approached. It's peaceful here, free from distractions. This is where you will cultivate from now on. Her voice remained distant, but her words were clear and precise. Jinshin nodded, absorbing every word. Quiet and away from the chaos, this is perfect. You will receive a newcomer package soon. A disciple will show you to your residence, she continued, her tone all business. Meet me at dawn in the main hall tomorrow. Don't be late. With that, she turned and began walking away. Jinshin watched her go, thoughts swirling in his head. She's cold and distant. Definitely not someone who gets close to her disciples. I need to be careful around her. He knew he had to tread carefully and not draw unnecessary attention. As he stood there, he made a quiet resolution. I'll lay low, train hard, and grow stronger in secret. 1 hour later, Jinshin sat outside, growing impatient. The guiding disciple who was supposed to show him to his dorm hadn't arrived. He decided to explore the inner hall himself. The place was sprawling, with countless residences. There might be hidden missions or surprises here. He hesitated before opening the first door. To his shock, he found himself staring at his sect leader, Lung Feiyin, in a bath completely naked. This is her room? He immediately averted his gaze. Apologies, sect leader, he stammered. Feiyin, unamused, struck him down. Who gave you permission to enter my residence? Jinshin quickly explained that he had accidentally entered while searching for his dorm. I didn't mean to intrude. The guiding disciple never showed up. I hope this doesn't affect your view of me. Feiyin, seeing his genuine mistake, decided not to punish him but warned, do not enter a residence without permission again. There won't be a next time. She handed him a pill, the mystical grade violet jade pill. This will help with your injuries. It increases your combat attributes by 30 points for 5 minutes and recovers 3,000 stamina outside of combat. Jinshin was taken aback by the sect leader's generosity. A spirit-grade pill. He pocketed it, deciding to save it for later. As he left the room, he thanked Feiyin and was greeted by Nan Gongyue, the guiding disciple, who had finally arrived. Junior brother, come meet your senior sister. Jinshin greeted her respectfully. She's the first person I've met in the sect, so she's automatically a senior. Nan Gongyue was pleased with his politeness, her favorability towards him rising to 10, casual. Gongyue introduced herself, saying she was at the final phase of the crystallization stage and offered her help for any future problems. Jinshin thought to himself, her favorability went up quickly. 8 Wastelands really does reward good looks. He complimented her. I didn't expect someone as beautiful as you to be so highly skilled. I'm truly impressed. Gonghua blushed. I didn't think you'd be such a flatterer. Jinshin added with a grin. There's an old saying. To improve your cultivation, you need more than just hard work. Sometimes a little flattery can go a long way. Gonghua chuckled, her favorability increasing by another 5 points, bringing it to 15, still casual. Jinshin noted, it's easier to get along with Gongyue compared to my icy master. He pondered the favorability system. 1 to 10, familiar. 11 to 20, casual. 21 to 30, companion. 31 to 40, close. 41 to 50, shared hearts. 51 to 60, intimate relationship. 61 to 70, congenial love. 71 to 80, perfect unison. 81 to 90, sworn everlasting love. 91 to 100, until death do us part. Different favorability levels unlock hidden missions and opportunities. As Jinshin walked alongside Gongyue, he thought about how favorability with NPCs could lead to physical interactions, or even a Dao couple status at perfect unison, which unlocks dual cultivation. That's a lot of potential, but it's tough to build favorability. In my previous life, many players who got too involved with NPCs ended up in trouble. Suddenly, he started coughing up blood. Ganhwa noticed and asked, "What's wrong? When did you get hurt?" Jinshin thought quickly. I need to use the pill the sect leader gave me to heal, but I also see an opportunity here. He wiped the blood from his mouth and said, "It's nothing serious. Before you arrived, I accidentally stumbled into the sect leader's residence and got a minor injury." Ganhwa looked distressed. "I'm so sorry. I was supposed to guide you, but I got caught up in a romance novel." She handed him a key replenishing pill. "Take this. It will help with your recovery." Jinshin accepted it with feigned humility, but was thrilled about getting another freebie. "Can't complain about this." Ganhwa continued, "It's my fault for being late. Please don't blame yourself." Jinshin reassured her, "No need to blame yourself. I should have been more careful." Touched by his words, Ganhwa's favorability increased by 5 points, reaching 20 casual. She then handed him a spirit-gathering jade pendant. "This is a small token of my apology. It boosts your defense by 10, heart protection by 5, and recovers 1% of mana every second when not in combat. It also has a skill, Spirit Shield, that blocks attacks from enemies below the crystallization stage. It has a 15-minute cooldown." Jinshin expressed his gratitude. "This pendant is amazing, especially the Spirit Shield. It's a rare find even among spiritual-grade equipment." Ganhwa shrugged. "It's nothing special. I have plenty of treasures like it." Ganhwa informed Jinshin, "We should head to your residence now. All your basic beginner equipment is there." Jinshin thanked her and thought, "It's a good thing I know how to play my cards right. If not for my acting skills, I wouldn't have scored so many treasures right after joining the sect. Treating NPCs like real people is the way to go, but only a returner like me knows that." A few minutes later, Ganhwa led him to the Earth-grade Spirit Gathering Formation. "You can absorb spiritual energy much faster here if you meditate. I'm a bit envious. We only have a mystical grade formation on my side." Jinshin marveled at the setup. Normally, new players would just find a quiet spot to meditate offline. But this Earth-grade formation is a game-changer. I didn't expect such a high-tier setup for my residence. With her mission complete, Ganhwa waved goodbye. "Work hard and make the most of it." Jinshin began his meditation in the formation. His speed increased by 52 points per hour, more than 10 times faster than normal at the key refining stage. With this rate, even if I'm away for 3 hours, I can max out my cultivation. Knowing his master would visit at dawn, he decided to log off for now. As he checked his phone, he saw that the deposit had been successfully made. 1.6 million yuan in just 5 hours. I can finally turn my tragic fate around in this life. With a smile, Jinshin felt a surge of optimism about his new opportunities.
A few hours later, Miss Frenzy roared up to Jinshin's place on her motorbike, looking absolutely stunning. She parked and walked up to the door, where Jinshin was waiting. "So, why'd you call me over this early, especially when I was getting ready for my morning run at the stadium?" she asked with a playful grin. Jinshin casually replied, "It's nothing major. Just wanted to show you my new apartment." Her eyes widened as she stepped inside, glancing around. "Not bad at all," she said, clearly impressed. "Of course it's not bad," Jinshin smirked. "It's costing me 4,000 to 6,000 yuan a month, about $826. Miss Frenzy rolled her eyes and teasingly stepped behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. "So, this is where the gym membership money I gave you went? You're really living the high life, huh?" Jinshin chuckled. "Well, I didn't have a way to pay you back, so I figured it was better to spend it all as fast as possible. Maybe you'd forget about it that way." Her expression darkened instantly. "You've got some nerve," she growled before leaping onto his lap and grabbing him by the neck. "You used my money for this?" She shook him like a sandbag as he desperately tried to explain, but in the chaos, his hand accidentally grazed her chest. A brief, stunned silence filled the room before she shrieked in fury. "You pervert!" she yelled, ready to pummel him again. But before the storm could continue, a knock echoed from the door. "Delivery. Your gaming cockpit is here." "Wait a second," Jinshin called out, turning back to the furious Miss Frenzy. "I bought you a gaming cockpit with the money I earned in the game. If you don't take it, I'll refund it right now." Miss Frenzy paused, her anger melting as quickly as it came. A gaming cockpit? For me. Her voice softened. Well, if you've already bought it, there's no point in sending it back, she said, trying to play it cool but clearly excited. Jinshin grinned, feeling the tension in the room ease. One cockpit enough to cover my debt? He teased. It's a bit big for your school dorm, and your dad would probably smash it if you put it at home. How about keeping it here? I've got a room reserved for you. She couldn't help but laugh. Her mood completely turned around. Fine. It is the newest model, she said, pulling out her phone to take pictures and share with her friends. Jinshin sighed, shaking his head. Sure enough, money really does solve 99% of problems. As Miss Frenzy happily snapped photos, Jinshin logged back into the game, eager to keep grinding. The moment he appeared in-game, his master was waiting for him. Not bad, she said, her eyes glowing with approval. You're progressing faster than I've seen in a long time. Jinshin bowed slightly. Thank you for the praise, master. But I'm stuck at the chi refining initial stage. I'm not sure how to break through. In most cases, Jinshin thought to himself, players needed a special elixir to break through each stage. Deciding to test the waters, he glanced up at his master. I was wondering, do you happen to have an elixir that could help me move forward? His master nodded and pulled out a pill, its radiant glow signifying its potency. This is a high-quality chi condensing pill, she said. If you take it, you'll be able to break through to the intermediate phase. Jinshin's eyes lit up with excitement, and he gratefully reached out to accept it. But just as his fingers brushed the elixir, his master pulled her hand back. Not so fast, she said with a stern expression. While your talents may be exceptional, you must understand that true strength comes from more than just cultivation. A real cultivator has fought through countless battles and faced endless challenges. Jinshin paused, absorbing her words. What you're saying, master, is that flowers raised in a greenhouse may look beautiful, but they will never survive the harsh storms of the world. Only trees that weather the fiercest winds can stand tall for eternity. He sighed slightly, the truth sinking in. In his past life, he had already discovered that while you could improve cultivation realms by throwing money at it, battle experience could only be earned through hard-fought struggles. His master raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. You've got quite the insight for someone so young. She had never expected him to be so grounded, and her favorability towards him increased by 5 points, reaching the familiar level. Jinshin felt a small surge of pride. Earning his master's favor was a win, and part of him briefly entertained the idea of possibly making her fall for him someday. But no, he quickly pushed the thought aside. In this life, I'm focused on one thing, becoming the #1 sword cultivator. There's no room for distractions like love. His master, unaware of his inner thoughts, continued. Now, if you want that pill, you'll need to prove yourself. Head to the sect mission area in the outer hall. Pick a mission suitable for the chi refining stage, and if you succeed, the spiritual pill will be yours. Jinshin nodded, accepting the challenge. But before he could leave, his master handed him a scroll. This is the Tian Heart Sutra, she said. It's a core heart technique that every disciple in the Tianyin sword sect must learn. Jinshin took the scroll gratefully. This is something all disciples learn, but most outer disciples have to earn it through missions. He grinned to himself. But I get it handed to me directly. Being a direct disciple has its perks. As morning broke, Jinshin made his way to the outer hall of the sect. Looking around, he noticed that the place was busier than expected. Looks like a lot of players have joined the sect, he thought. Makes sense. Even though the sect invitation mission is hidden, sharp players would eventually figure it out. Soon, more and more will flood in. But I was here first, and I've already secured my spot as a direct disciple. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice call his name. Jinshin. He turned to see Wanling, the girl he had sold information to earlier, waving at him with a bright smile. Jinshin was a little surprised to see her. So she really did join the sword sect after buying that info from me. He smiled back. Good. The more friends I have in this game, the better. Who knows? I might need her help in the future. Inshin turned to Wanling, giving a casual nod. What a coincidence that we ended up in the same sect, he said. Wanling smiled. I've always loved swords, so of course I chose the sword sect. Without saying much more, Jinshin waved her off. I've got a mission to complete. Let's chat next time. Wanling's smile faltered a bit as he walked away, cutting their conversation short. He left so fast, she muttered, feeling a little disappointed. The girl beside her smirked. Jinshin's pretty cold. Huh? I bet it's going to be tough if you're trying to win him over. Wanling's cheeks turned bright red. She snapped back. What are you talking about? Which eye of yours sees me chasing after him? The other girl burst into laughter. What a pity. I was hoping to watch a good show. A girl chasing after a guy. Wanling huffed, embarrassed. Let's not waste any more time. We need to finish our mission. We still need 3 merit points to exchange for the Tianyin Heart Sutra. Her friend groaned. Ugh, don't remind me. It's so hard to earn merit points. We've done so many missions, and we're still 3 points short. How is anyone supposed to get the Tianyin Heart Sutra? Little did they know, Jin Xian had already received the Heart Sutra without breaking a sweat. As he scanned through the technique, deep in thought, the mission board attendant called out, "Next." Jin Xian stepped forward, greeted by the attendant's friendly but professional demeanor. "Choose a mission, but make sure it's within your capabilities," she advised. Jin Xian browsed the mission board, mentally weighing his options. Collecting mortal herbs? Too easy. Sure, I'd get experience, but it's just a waste of time. His eyes moved to the more advanced missions. Hunting chi refining stage monsters? Not bad for building combat experience, but nothing special. Then something caught his eye, a special plaque under the Hell difficulty section. His interest piqued. Jin Chen leaned in closer. The mission was based in Fengxiu City, a place he knew well. A special mission usually means special rewards. Without hesitation, he selected the mission. Almost instantly, a message popped up from the system. Hell level mission selected. Retrieve the lost secret technique. The mission difficulty is extremely high. Low realm disciples should proceed with caution. The mission's details appeared before him. A chi refining stage disciple named Zhang Hai was killed outside the sect, and the secret technique he carried was stolen. Your mission is to avenge him and recover the lost technique. Jin Shen's eyes narrowed. So this is a revenge mission? And the target is probably no pushover. But with the Tianyin Heart Sutra now boosting all his fighting attributes by 5%, Jin Shen felt confident. He had the advantage of being a returner, and this challenge would only help sharpen his skills. Fengxiu City. Huh? I'm familiar with that place. This is going to be interesting. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jin Shen accepted the mission. He knew that the rewards for completing a hell-level mission could propel him forward quickly, and besides, this was just the kind of challenge he needed to truly test his strength. The mission rewards flashed before Jin Shen's eyes. 100 lower-grade spiritual stones, 100 merit points, 1 upper-grade chi condensing pill, a spiritual-grade martial art skill, and a hidden reward. The girl at the mission board raised an eyebrow, concerned. Are you sure you want to take this mission? It's extremely difficult. The person who killed Zhang Hai is likely at the chi refining stage final phase, much higher than your current realm. Besides, the sect doesn't allow disciples to accept new missions if they already have an incomplete one. Jin Shen smiled and nodded politely. Thank you for the reminder, but I've made up my mind. Disciples nearby exchanged glances, clearly surprised. One of them scoffed. He's got to be joking. The mission hint clearly states the enemy is at the final phase of chi refining. There's no way he can handle that. He's practically asking to get killed. Another disciple chimed in, shaking his head. Even if he's crazy enough to face someone in a higher realm, the mission has too few leads. Finding the killer will be like searching for a needle in the ocean. He's just showing off, and we all know how that ends. Wait and see. He's going to be humiliated. Ignoring the chatter, Jin Chen headed off. Let them talk. By the time I'm done, I'll have the last laugh. Nightfall. Somewhere in Fengxiu City. Jin Chen arrived at the location hinted at in the mission. The dark, narrow alley buzzed with energy. He approached cautiously, the air heavy with tension. This is it. The trail begins here. Before he could even step inside the building, 3 beautiful, busty women approached him. Their movements were graceful, their eyes filled with respect. An immortal from the Tianyin sword sect, one of them purred. Please come inside. Let us guide you. Jin Shen blinked, a bit caught off guard by their sudden appearance. What's this? Are they just welcoming me because of the sect, or is there something more going on? He kept his cool, nodding as they led him into the building. Jin Shen stepped into the building, his eyes scanning the room. In front of him stood a man, animatedly giving the latest updates about the world of immortals. Jin Shen recognized him instantly, the intelligence merchant from 8 Wastelands. Li Si, Jin Shen muttered to himself. Just like in my past life. He's a lot like a reporter, always in the know, whether it's the big events or the small ones. Li Si's job was simple. Deliver breaking news to anyone willing to listen, and make money while doing it. Jin Shen knew that if he listened closely, he'd find the clues he needed. After a series of mundane updates, Jin Shen's ears perked up. A disciple of the Tianyin sword sect named Zhang Hai was killed while journeying. The murderer is a rogue cultivator at the Qi refining stage final phase, Zhou Hao, known for his ties to the demonic path. Jin Chun's eyes narrowed in satisfaction. Bingo! As the crowd dispersed, Jin Chun calmly approached Li Si. I need to purchase some information. Li Si grinned knowingly. Of course, as long as the money's right, I've got what you need. Without hesitation, Jin Chun tossed him a bag of spiritual stones. Tell me where I can find Zhou Hao. Li Si weighed the bag and smirked. Zhou Hao's often seen lurking in Fengxiu City's Red District. He's a leecher who spends his time with women and wine. Just as Li Si was about to leave, he paused. There's one more piece of information that could be quite important to you, but it'll cost you 5 more spiritual stones. Jin Chun didn't bat an eye. No problem. He handed over the stones. Li Si leaned in. Zhou Hao isn't your only concern. He has an older brother, Zhou Shan. He's at the foundation stage, so if you cross him, you'd better be ready. Tread carefully, disciple. Zhou Shan, Jin Chun repeated, nodding. Got it. Meanwhile, somewhere in Fengxiu City at Autumn Moon Building, the air reeked of alcohol and cheap perfume as Zhou Hao staggered out of the Autumn Moon Building, clearly drunk. 2 women clung to his arms, giggling as he promised, next time, both of you will have to queue up for me. Little did he know that Jin Chun was already on his trail, watching from the shadows. Zhou Hao weaved through the dimly lit streets, oblivious to the silent figure tailing him. As he wandered down a narrow forest path, something shifted in the air. Zhou Hao stopped, his instincts finally kicking in. Who's there? He shouted, his voice slurred. Jin Chun stepped out from the darkness, his eyes cold and determined. I am someone who wants your life. Zhou Hao chuckled, wiping his mouth. Huh. You're just a Tianyin disciple at the Qi refining stage initial phase, and you think you can take me down? You must be suicidal, boy. Jin Chun tightened his grip on his sword, his gaze never wavering. Underestimate me all you want. It'll be the last mistake you make. Zhou Hao sneered, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Let's see if you can back up that arrogance with your sword. Zhou Hao charged forward with his sword drawn, his eyes gleaming with malice. Tired of living, are you? He sneered, swinging his blade at Jin Chun. But before the strike could land, Jin Chun effortlessly dodged the attack, leaving Zhou Hao momentarily stunned. Unwilling to give up, Zhou Hao quickly spun his sword in a series of rapid, circular motions, attempting a counterattack. Yet, Jin Chun blocked every strike, and the two briefly lost their footing midair, hovering in a tense standoff. How are you this strong? Zhou Hao demanded, disbelief etched on his face. You're only at the Qi refining initial phase. Jin Chun smirked, his voice calm. It's not that I'm too powerful. You're just too weak. He thought to himself, that 5% boost in combat attributes from the Tianyin Heart Sutra really is no joke. Zhou Hao, enraged, activated his wild saber slash, a devastating technique that sent his blade slashing towards Jin Chun with reckless force. Jin Chun responded by activating his spirit shield, blocking the attack with ease. Smirking, Jin Chun thought, time to test out this spirit-gathering jade pendant Gongyue gave me. As Zhou Hao's attack collided with his shield, Jin Chun emerged completely unscathed, not a scratch on him. Zhou Hao's eyes widened. So many treasures, he spat. Looks like the sect favors you quite a bit. Hand them over, and I might spare your life. Jin Chun raised an eyebrow, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Who gave you the courage to ask me to hand over my stuff? Zhou Hao, no longer interested in talking, lunged at Jin Chun with all his might. But Jin Chun, moving with precision and speed, dodged every single strike. Zhou Hao's frustration grew, and realizing that prolonging the fight would only lead to his death, he made the desperate decision to retreat. Sensing the opportunity, Jin Chun charged forward, slashing through Zhou Hao's defenses. One powerful strike brought Zhou Hao's HP down by 90%, leaving him reeling in shock. How can one slash reduce 90% of my HP? Zhou Hao gasped. Jin Chun, now seeing Zhou Hao's stats more clearly, smirked. Zhou Hao's profession as a saber cultivator boasted an HP of 2,550, strength of 32, mental power of 30, defense of 28, and speed of 36. His thunder saber was a spiritual grade weapon, and he wielded the wind energy saber technique at minor proficiency, alongside the wind saber slash martial skill and mist-piercing charge body technique, both at beginner levels. But even with all this, Jin Chun's base stats were far superior. His higher attributes, top-tier skills, and equipment gave him a significant edge. With Zhou Hao's defenses crumbling, and his saber sustaining damage, Jin Chun mocked him. Weak chicken. Now, hand over the Tianyin Sword Sect's secret technique, or I'll finish you off. Zhou Hao, visibly shaken, dropped to his knees. I didn't realize how powerful you were. Please, I'll give you what you want. He reached into his robes to retrieve the technique, ready to surrender. But just as he extended his hand, a sudden sneak attack shot out from the shadows. Both Jinxin and Zhou Hao reacted in an instant, narrowly dodging the surprise strike. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was Zhou Shan, Zhou Hao's brother, standing several meters away with a cold expression. Brother, save me, Zhou Hao shouted, his voice trembling as he glanced at Jinxin. You're really unlucky to run into my brother. He'll make you pay for every scar you left on me 100-fold. Jin Chun's eyes narrowed as he sensed the immense pressure radiating from Zhou Shan. He hadn't expected the foundation stage cultivator to be this much stronger. Zhou Shan, a rogue cultivator with a stern, no-nonsense demeanor, shot a furious glare at Zhou Hao. I warned you. Things are tense these days. I told you to stay on the mountain, but you wouldn't listen. He took a step forward, his voice low and menacing. If I hadn't come down in time, you'd be dead by now. Zhou Hao bowed his head, apologizing profusely. Brother, I swear I'll listen to you from now on. But first, avenge me. He's humiliated me. He must pay. Zhou Shan shifted his gaze to Jin Chun, a cruel smile forming on his lips. Hand over that spirit shield, and maybe I'll make your death quick. Otherwise, I'll carve you up so badly you'll beg for death. Jin Chun simply laughed, not taking his words seriously. Villains always talk too much. Meanwhile, Zhou Hao fumbled in his robes for an elixir. Brother, give me a moment. Let me recover my stamina, and I'll help you finish him. Before he could even bring the pill to his lips, Jin Chun moved like lightning. His blade flashed, striking Zhou Hao's neck with a critical hit, dealing 300 damage and leaving only a sliver of his health. Zhou Hao's eyes went wide, gasping in shock. Without hesitation, Jin Chun charged again, his sword gleaming under the moonlight. Zhou Shan, caught off guard, could only watch in stunned disbelief as Jin Chun's blade pierced through Zhou Hao's throat. Blood splattered across the forest floor as Zhou Hao let out a final, agonized scream before collapsing, lifeless. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Zhou Shan stood, motionless, his face twisted with fury as he stared at his brother's corpse. You killed him, Zhou Shan growled, his voice barely a whisper, trembling with rage. Jin Chun wiped the blood from his sword, unfazed. Looks like your brother didn't know the rule. Villains die when they talk too much. His tone was cold, cutting. And in case you haven't realized, my target has always been both of you. Double the loot, double the fun. Jin Chun's eyes gleamed with deadly intent. Now, it's your turn to die. Zhou Shan's rage exploded as he lunged at Jin Chun with his blade. Jin Chun barely had time to react as the attack landed hard, reducing his health by 220 in a single strike. This guy's on a whole other level, Jin Chun thought, quickly parrying the next attack to prevent further damage. Zhou Shan, a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator, was far more formidable than his dead brother. His stats were overwhelming: Strength 70, Mental Power 40, Defense 55, Speed 50, and a critical hit rate of 6. He wielded 3 spiritual-grade items: the Snow-Slashing Saber, a 100 times forged ring, and the Rhinoceros Belt, along with the Broad Moon Saber technique, Soul Chase, and Clone Shadow Step, all formidable techniques. In a flash, Zhou Shan appeared behind Jin Chun. Fast! Jin Chun barely managed to block, the force of the clash pushing him back several feet. Though Zhou Shan's speed surpassed Jin Chun's, his experience and instincts from his previous life allowed him to anticipate attacks just in time. Zhou Shan, visibly frustrated, gritted his teeth. How am I not able to take down a mere chi refinement brat? His pride wounded, he unleashed his soul-splitting technique. Jin Chun raised his sword, blocking the strike, but still took 300 damage. He cursed himself for using his spirit shield earlier and letting it go on cooldown. If it had been ready, he could have blocked the attack entirely. Jin Chun glanced at his shadow step cooldown, just 10 seconds left. I can hang in there until it's ready. Zhou Shan sneered. Too slow. You really think you can match me in speed? He activated his clone shadow step, creating 2 identical clones of himself, surrounding Jin Chun in a deadly circle. The clones moved in sync, making it hard to tell which was the real Zhou Shan. A cloning technique, huh? Jin Chun smirked to himself, unfazed. I've seen this trick before. He scanned the clones carefully. To an untrained eye, they were identical, but Jin Shun knew better. There was always a tell. Observing closely, he spotted the key. The real Zhou Shun had life in his eyes, while the clone's eyes were dull, lifeless. Without hesitation, Jin Shun struck the real Zhou Shun, landing a critical hit for 55 damage. His penetration effect kicked in, having Zhou Shun's defense for the next 5 seconds. Perfect. Time to end this. Jin Shun pressed the attack, his sword flashing with deadly precision. Zhou Shun coughed up blood, his health dropping by 110. Furious, he activated a skill that bounced Jin Shun's next attack back, forcing Jin Shun to retreat. But Zhou Shun didn't let up. He unleashed his broad moon saber technique, the saber flashing like moonlight, too fast for Jin Shun to fully block. Jin Shun's health plummeted under the relentless onslaught. He's fast, too fast. Jin Shun's mind raced as his options dwindled. He knew anyone at the Foundation establishment stage wouldn't be easy, but Zhou Shun's rapid strikes were overwhelming, pushing Jin Shun to his limits. Jin Shun's health had already dropped by a third. If things kept going like this, he knew he'd die. His unique talent meant that if he died once, his attributes would drop by 10%. But he refused to let that happen. He couldn't lose such a lucky start. With no other choice, he pulled out the mystical violet jade pill his master had given him. The pill would boost all his combat attributes by 30 points for 5 minutes and, outside of combat, restore 3,000 stamina points. I can't waste it, but if I don't use it now, I'm dead, Jin Shun thought, gritting his teeth. Swallowing the pill, a surge of power rushed through his body. Zhou Shun paused, his eyes narrowing as he noticed the sudden change in Jin Shun. The aura around Jin Shun intensified, his energy spiking dramatically. Jin Shun felt the difference instantly, his exhaustion melting away, replaced by a newfound strength. Zhou Shun sneered, activating his broad moon saber technique again. Laughing in the face of death? Huh? Let's see how long that lasts when you're in the underworld. He lunged at Jin Shun, but this time, Jin Shun's health immediately recovered to full. Zhou Shun's strike, which had been deadly moments before, now bounced off without doing any damage. Zhou Shun's eyes widened in disbelief. That elixir? It's no ordinary pill, is it? You must be loaded with treasure. He tightened his grip on his saber. But no matter how strong it makes you, the effects will wear off soon enough. Let's see if you can rely on it forever. Jin Shun laughed, his eyes sharp with newfound confidence. You're right, the elixir won't last. That's why I'll kill you before it wears off. Without hesitation, Jin Shun slashed, his sword cutting through the air and dealing 180 damage to Zhou Shun. The impact left Zhou Shun stunned. He couldn't comprehend how Jin Shun had suddenly become so powerful. Deciding to play it safe, Zhou Shun shifted to defense, biding his time until the elixir's effects wore off. The battle raged on, their blades clashing in rapid succession. As they fought, Jin Shun felt something click. In the heat of combat, he comprehended sword intent, increasing his swordsmanship aptitude by 5%. This is it, Jin Shun thought, his strikes growing sharper with each blow. Jin Shun's relentless assault wore Zhou Shun down, reducing his health to just over half. This kid, he must be an important disciple of the Tianyin sword sect. I can't let him leave here alive, or the consequences will be disastrous. Desperate, Zhou Shun activated his soul chase technique, his trump card. With deadly precision, he aimed straight at Jin Shun. But Jin Shun, with his heightened senses, dodged it just in time. For a brief moment, Zhou Shun hesitated, his eyes widening in shock. That split-second distraction was all Jin Shun needed. Seizing the opening, he struck with everything he had, landing a fatal blow. Zhou Shun's body crumpled to the ground, lifeless. A message flashed in Jin Shun's mind, Hell difficulty mission complete. Return to the sect for your rewards. Jin Shun sheathed his sword, catching his breath. That was close, but it's done. After defeating Zhou Shun and Zhou Hao, Jin Shun made his way back to Fengqiu City's bustling market. It was his first time completing a mission outside the sect, and he figured it was only right to get a gift for his master as a token of gratitude. Strolling through the market, he scanned the various stalls, his mind drifting. Maybe a gift will raise her favorability, he mused, but the real question was, what should he buy? As Jin Shun wandered deeper into the market, he remembered a famous saying, a woman can never have too many accessories. With that in mind, he headed toward a jewelry shop, eyeing a beautifully crafted jade hairpin. Satisfied with his choice, he made the purchase and set off back to the Tianyin sword sect to submit his mission report. Upon arriving at the mission hall, Jinshin noticed the usual hustle and bustle, disciples choosing or submitting their missions. He approached the mission lady, the woman responsible for recording missions, and handed her his mission progress report. The moment she saw him, she gasped in disbelief. "Brother, you're amazing," she exclaimed, placing a hand over her mouth. "You completed a hell-level mission so quickly?" Her reaction caught the attention of the nearby disciples. Several of them turned to look at Jinshin, their eyes narrowing in suspicion. One disciple, his mouth wide open, blurted out, "Who the hell is this guy? A hell-level mission?" Another, rubbing his chin, murmured, "Impossible. You'd need to be at the chi refinement final phase to even survive that." The whispers spread like wildfire. A few players in the crowd began to focus on the scroll Jinshin held, curiosity piqued. The mission lady, still amazed, accepted the report. "You truly are an elite disciple of the inner halls," she said, smiling. "The sect recognizes your potential, and you have a promising future." With a wave of her hand, a set of materials appeared, hovering in midair. "Here are your mission completion rewards. Additionally, the sect has decided to grant you an extra reward of 100 lower-grade spirit stones." Jinshin calmly brought out his storage bag and collected the rewards, flashing the mission lady a cheerful smile. "Thank you, senior sister," he said, his tone humble. Meanwhile, the crowd around him erupted in gasps. 100 lower-grade spirit stones. "I've only earned 10 from dozens of missions," one disciple exclaimed. Another pointed at the sect merit points displayed on Jinshan's wooden plaque. "He has 100 merit points. You'd have to complete at least 10 missions to earn that." As Jinshan turned to leave, he was suddenly surrounded by a group of outer disciples. They showered him with praise, impressed by his achievements. "Brother Jinshin, you're incredible," one said, admiration shining in his eyes. Some of the players in the crowd moved in as well, eager to approach him. "Have you joined a guild yet? If not, our guild would be honored to have you," one player asked. A girl stepped forward, eyes sparkling. "Senior, I'd be willing to do anything if you could carry me through a few missions," she said with a flirty smile. Jinshin waved his hands, a cheerful yet polite smile on his face. "Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the support, but I have some matters to attend to." But the players weren't ready to give up on riding Jinshin's coattails just yet. As soon as he turned to leave, they sprinted after him. "Wait, senior. Let us join you," they shouted, causing Jinshin to break into a sweat. "Stop chasing me," Jinshin yelled, bolting away from the crowd as fast as he could. He hurried through the bustling sect grounds, weaving through the streets. Luckily, he soon reached the inner hall. The disciples guarding the entrance noticed the commotion and quickly stepped in. "Stop. No outer disciples allowed beyond this point," one of the guards declared, blocking the way. The players skidded to a halt, disappointment clear on their faces. "Wait, he's an inner hall disciple," one of them said, wide-eyed. "No wonder he's so strong. He's a real expert," another added, shaking his head in awe. Jinshin sighed in relief as he finally escaped the eager crowd, making his way toward his master's abode. Upon arriving, he respectfully bowed in front of Long Fian, who lounged on her throne, her cold yet graceful presence filling the room. "Master," Jinshin greeted, his voice calm. Long Fian glanced at him, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly. "I heard you took on a hell-level mission," she said, her voice icy. Jinshin nodded. Her expression turned serious, her piercing gaze locking onto him. "I told you to choose a hard-level mission, not a hell-level one," she said sternly. "If you had failed, you might have died out there. Losing you would have been a great loss to the Tianyan sword sect." Jinshin raised an eyebrow, but immediately lowered his head in apology. This disciple was wrong. "Master is right to lecture me." Long Fian waved her hand, dismissing his apology. "Forget it," she said, though her tone remained strict. "Tell me, what was your opponent's cultivation realm?" Jinshan's gaze darkened slightly as he recalled the face of Zhou Shan. "At first, I thought he was just a chi refining disciple, but I later discovered that his brother was at the foundation establishment stage." Long Fian's eyes widened slightly, her usual calm demeanor faltering. "You killed a foundation stage cultivator?" she asked, her disbelief clear. Jinshin humbly nodded. "Yes, but I only managed it thanks to the elixir you gave me. Without it, I would have had no chance." Long Fian stared at him for a moment, deep in thought. Her expression softened, and a hint of pride flickered in her eyes. "I see. Still, you must be more vigilant in the future. The gap between realms is vast, and you can't rely on luck forever." With a swift motion, She summoned a life and death talisman, its aura swirling with powerful energy, and tossed it toward Jin Chun. "Take this," she said. "This talisman holds a wisp of my soul. Use it only in life or death situations." Jin Chun's eyes widened as the system notification popped up, revealing the talisman's attributes. It was called the Soul Talisman and could only be used against NPCs, not other players. The immense power it held was clear. As the talisman hovered toward him, enveloped in his master's energy, Jin Chun caught it with both hands. He bowed deeply. "Thank you, master. I will use it wisely." Inside, Jin Chun was bursting with excitement. With this talisman, I'll be unstoppable, he thought. His hard work had finally paid off. Not only had he earned his master's trust, but he now had her full support. With this, the future seemed bright. Long Fian glanced at Jin Chun once more before producing two small, glowing pills from her sleeve. "These are high-grade qi-condensing pills," she said calmly. "One is the reward I promised you before, and the other is for successfully clearing the Hell-level mission." Jin Chun bowed his head deeply, gratitude evident in his voice. "Thank you, master, for your care. I won't disappoint you in the future." Long Fian's sharp gaze softened just a fraction as she nodded. "What you lack most now is a proper sword technique. Visit the scripture library and exchange one from there. It will aid you greatly in your future battles." As she turned to leave, Jin Chun quickly raised his head. "Master, wait!" he called out, pulling the simple jade hairpin from his storage bag. He stepped forward, holding it out to her with both hands. "I wanted to offer you a gift. I couldn't afford a jeweled hairpin, so I bought this ordinary one instead." Long Fian looked at the hairpin, her expression unreadable as she studied it in silence. After a few tense moments, she spoke in a calm, yet distant tone. "Focus on your cultivation, Jin Chun. Don't slack off." With that, she disappeared into thin air, leaving Jin Chun standing alone in her grand palace. Jin Chun blinked, staring at the spot where his master once stood. Did she not like it? He wondered, feeling a little unsure. But just then, a system notification popped up in front of him. "Long Fian's favorability towards you has increased by 5 points. Total, 10 points. Seeing the notification, Jin Chun's eyes widened in surprise before clenching his fists in joy. It increased, he thought excitedly. She may seem cold, but master does care. With a satisfied grin, Jin Chun left the sect master's palace, feeling a renewed sense of determination. As he walked toward his own abode, thinking of his next steps, a loud explosion suddenly shook the area, snapping him out of his thoughts. What was that? Jin Chun muttered, his head whipping toward the direction of the explosion. In the distance, smoke and debris filled the sky. His instincts kicked in, and he immediately made his way toward the scene. At the source of the explosion, the entire area was covered in rubble, and a thick cloud of smoke still hung in the air. Disciples had already gathered, murmuring and pointing in confusion. From within the smoke, a figure emerged, coughing. As the dust settled, the figure became clear. It was Elder Tianqing, one of the 12 great elders of the Tianyin sword sect. Elder Tianqing wiped the dust from his robes, shaking his head in frustration. "I failed again. Why is the Eternal Youth pill so much harder to refine than the Celestial Essence pill?" he muttered to himself. Realizing a crowd had gathered, he cleared his throat and raised his voice. "Disciples of the sect," he announced, "I require a medicinal catalyst for my next attempt. Who among you is willing to help me find one?" As soon as Elder Tianqing made his request, a virtual screen popped up in front of every player present, displaying the details of a new mission. Hell difficulty mission. Help Elder Tianqing find the Yin replenishing herb. Objective: locate the Yin replenishing herb within 24 hours. Hint: the herb can be found on the body of the medicinal spirit falcon, located in Songlang Medicine Valley. Rewards: high-grade elixirs and rare cultivation materials. As the players discussed amongst themselves, one muttered under his breath, "Another hell-level mission? Don't we need spirit stones to even get to Songlang Medicine Valley?" A nearby player rubbed his head in frustration. "No way I'm taking this mission. It's not just hard, it's expensive. Definitely not worth it." The crowd was buzzing with complaints when suddenly, Jin Chun appeared. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, saluted Elder Tianqing, and declared, "I'm willing to find the Yin replenishing herb, Elder." The players turned, startled, eyes widening in disbelief. "Is he seriously accepting a hell-level mission?" someone whispered. Elder Tianqing stroked his long beard as he observed Jin Chun. This is the boy who became Long Fian's direct disciple. He smiled faintly, recognizing Jin Chun's potential. Meanwhile, Jin Shun couldn't hide his grin. He knew Elder Tianqing was the top alchemy grandmaster in the sword sect, and building a good relationship with such a powerful figure could only benefit him down the line. After accepting the mission, Jin Shun wasted no time and headed straight for Zhonglang Medicine Valley. By the time he arrived, night had fallen. The valley was dim, and Jin Shen held a lantern high to light his way. Spirit falcons usually nest near areas rich with herbs, Jin Shen thought, recalling memories from his past life. As he searched, the distant sounds of battle caught his attention. He followed the noise until he came across a group of female players, locked in combat with the medicinal spirit falcon. The falcon's HP had already dropped to half, and it screeched as it retaliated against the players' attacks. Jin Shen stood back, watching them struggle with a smirk. Amateurs. They're no match for a boss like that, he thought. They'll be wiped out soon. With a casual stride, he began walking towards the battlefield, his lantern casting a soft glow around him. One of the female players fighting the falcon spotted him and gasped. "Hey, look, the handsome expert is here," she exclaimed, pointing in Jin Shun's direction. The girl named Wanling turned to see Jin Shen approaching, her eyes widening in disbelief. As he reached them, Jin Shun spoke calmly. "I need the medicinal spirit falcon for a mission. Would you be willing to let me take it off your hands?" Before Wanling could respond, another figure descended from the air. A silver-haired female player dressed in green, her aura commanding attention. She landed gracefully beside Wanling and asked in a cool voice, "Do you know this person?" Wanling quickly rushed to her side. "Sister, this is the expert I told you about, the one who killed the Boar King in the beginner village all by himself." His name was announced to the entire server. The silver-haired player raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Wanling leaned in, lowering her voice. "He's also the one who sold us the information for that blacksmith mission." The silver-haired girl narrowed her eyes as she spoke to Wanling. "This guy's probably here to capture the boss and claim the Tianyin Heart Sutra. But this spirit falcon is equally important to our Moon Shadow Guild. We can't let him have it, even if we are on good terms." Wanling nodded in agreement and stepped forward, slightly bowing her head to Jin Shun. "I'm sorry, Jin Shun, but we also need the falcon for our mission. You'll have to wait for it to respawn tomorrow." Jin Shun crossed his arms, a sigh escaping his lips. "As I thought." He glanced up at the spirit falcon. "But looking at how your battle's going, I doubt I'll need to wait that long for the respawn." Just as Jin Shen predicted, the falcon's HP dropped to half. It screeched loudly, soaring high into the air, and its body began emitting golden dust. The pollen spread throughout the area, and soon, the players around it started swaying on their feet, their senses dulling. The falcon seized the moment. With a single, devastating strike, it knocked down several players, their cries of pain echoing as they were tossed aside like rag dolls. The silver-haired girl, shocked by the sudden change, hesitated. Wanling turned to Jin Shen, her eyes wide. Jin Shen shrugged. "I was just about to tell you. When the spirit falcon's HP drops to half, it releases stunning pollen. It lowers your physical energy and increases your skill cooldown. Best of luck." Wanling's jaw dropped. "Wait, what are you saying?" Before Jin Shun could respond, the silver-haired girl leaped into action. "Ignore him. Focus on delaying the boss." She rushed forward, summoning her power. With a swift motion, she cast Earth Immortal Binding Hands, golden energy shooting out to bind the spirit falcon in place. Immediately after, she followed up with her blazing fire lantern technique. Flames erupted beneath the falcon, engulfing it entirely, and in an instant, its HP plummeted to a quarter. Jin Shen stood back, arms still crossed, watching the scene with a sigh. Skills like that only make things worse. Once the falcon's wrath meter maxes out, its attack speed and damage will increase drastically. As if on cue, the spirit falcon let out an enraged screech, its eyes glowing a fierce crimson. It shot towards the silver-haired girl with terrifying speed, its beak aimed to tear her apart. "Careful!" Wanling cried out, rushing to her aid, but it was too late. The falcon's attack struck, the silver-haired girl coughing up blood as her HP dropped to near nothing. Staggering backward from the impact, she regained her balance just enough to cast stone rain. Dozens of sharp rocks hurtled towards the falcon, but it barely seemed fazed. Jin Shen finally spoke up, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Are you dumb?" His tone was sharp, though his expression remained calm. The silver-haired girl glared at him, but Jin Shen ignored her frustration. "I can teach you how to beat this thing, but the replenishing herb it drops is mine. Deal?" Both Wanling and the silver-haired girl exchanged quick glances. Desperation flickered in their eyes. They nodded in unison, Wanling pleading, "Please, Jin Shin, guide us." Jin Shin walked over to the silver-haired girl, his eyes sharp as he spoke. "The falcon's got its eyes on you. Your skills like stone rain are only making it angrier." He gestured at her health bar, which was dangerously low. "Look at your HP. You've barely got anything left. If you don't handle this right, one more hit from the falcon and you're done for." The girl lowered her gaze, feeling the weight of his words. She knew he was right. Jin Shin stepped closer, grabbing her hand gently but firmly, guiding her staff. "This isn't how you use stone rain. You have to combine it with Earth Immortal binding hands to deal maximum damage. Watch." The silver-haired girl, startled by Jin Shin's close proximity, felt her face grow warm. Her cheeks flushed as he showed her the proper technique. "Now, use Earth Immortal binding hands," Jin Shin instructed. She immediately followed his command. The spirit falcon, still hovering ominously above them, was suddenly bound in midair, unable to move. "Good," Jin Shin praised, a faint smile on his lips. "Now keep it locked down. Let your teammates handle the close combat." Wanling stepped forward, her sword gleaming as she began striking the immobilized falcon. With each slash, the falcon's health dropped further. The silver-haired girl's eyes lit up with joy as she saw the tide of the battle turning. "Thank you, Jin Shin," she exclaimed, overjoyed by the shift in momentum. But just as victory seemed within reach, a rustling sound came from the dense forest behind them. A group of players emerged, their leader stepping forward. "The Blood Fiend Guild is clearing this area," a loud voice boomed. Jin Shin turned to face the newcomers. At the head of the group was a cultivator with striking red hair, flanked by several other players. He pointed at the falcon and then jabbed his thumb toward himself with a smirk. "We're taking this, boss. Stop whatever you're doing and leave. Or else, don't blame us for what happens next." The silver-haired girl's teammates quickly gathered around her, concern written on their faces. Wanling, eyes wide with worry, leaned in. "Boss, the Blood Fiend Guild is one of the biggest in the gaming world. We don't have enough people to take them on. What should we do?" But the silver-haired girl stood firm, her expression determined. "We won't back down," she said, her voice strong. "Even if we lose, we'll show them the fighting spirit of the Moon Shadow Guild." Wanling nodded, her resolve hardening in response. The silver-haired girl glanced at the spirit falcon, still bound but struggling to break free. "The real issue is the falcon. We're so close to killing it, but we can't focus on two battles at once. If we fight the Blood Fiends, the falcon will get away." Her frustration was clear, knowing that giving up on the falcon now would be a huge loss. Jin Shin, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "I'll handle the falcon for you," he offered, his tone casual but confident. "In exchange, I'll take a piece of the Een replenishing herb and choose one of the equipment drops. Deal?" The silver-haired girl and Wanling exchanged surprised glances. His offer was unexpected, and they both knew Jin Shin's reputation. Wanling hesitated before speaking up. "I can have a few of our guild members stay behind to help you." Jin Shin interrupted her, drawing his sword in a smooth motion, his eyes locked on the falcon. "No need. I can handle it alone." As if sensing his challenge, the spirit falcon broke free from its bindings, spreading its wings wide in a threatening display. Both Wanling and the silver-haired girl were left speechless by Jin Shin's confidence. Suddenly, the mocking laughter of the Blood Fiend Guild leader, the red-haired cultivator, cut through the tension. "You? Handling the falcon at the Chi refining final phase? Alone? That's rich." His laughter echoed through the valley, a cruel sneer twisting his face. "You're delusional." With a snap of his fingers, the red-haired leader gave the order. "Blood Fiends, attack. Wipe out the Moon Shadow Guild." On his command, the Blood Fiend Guild surged forward. Their numbers were overwhelming, a chaotic wave of enemies charging with deadly intent. Wanling's voice rang out, commanding her guild to defend. "Moon Shadow, hold the line." Swords clashed as the two guilds collided in a fierce struggle. Energy blasts lit up the battlefield as both sides fought with everything they had. However, the Moon Shadow Guild, outnumbered and under heavy assault, was quickly pushed back. The Blood Fiends used dirty tactics, surrounding and picking off the Moon Shadow members one by one. In no time, the Blood Fiend Guild had cornered the remaining members of Moon Shadow. A tight circle of enemies formed around them, like predators closing in for the kill. Wanling, breathing heavily, gripped her sword, her eyes darting around, searching for an opening. The silver-haired girl, staff in hand, tried to keep the blood fiends at bay, but it was clear that they were in trouble. The blood fiend leader sat arrogantly atop a rock, laughing with malicious glee. Why do you women even bother coming to Medicine Valley? Wouldn't it be easier to stay back in the beginner village? Too late now. Guess I'll send you back there myself? His maniacal laughter echoed across the valley as his crimson energy surged, casting a sinister glow over the battlefield. With a wicked smirk, he sneered at the Moon Shadow Guild, his eyes cold. This is your fate for daring to go against the blood fiends. Consider this your lesson. His lackeys, faces twisted with lust and greed, mirrored their leader's evil intentions. They eyed the Moon Shadow Guild like devils ready to pounce, their leader marveling at his own achievement. The game only launched a few days ago, and I've already crushed a guild. His self-satisfaction was palpable. Just then, one of the blood fiend lackeys pointed toward the sky. Boss, look, the first blood announcement. The blood fiend leader's cocky grin vanished as his eyes widened in shock. A game notification flashed across the sky. Congratulations to player Jinshun for being the first to slay a chi refining stage boss. The announcement listed the rewards: 400 reputation points, 2 innate charisma points, and 1 achievement medal. The blood fiend guild stared in disbelief, their eyes wide and their jaws practically hitting the ground. Jinshun stood calmly by the massive corpse of the spirit falcon, seemingly unaffected by the chaos. His voice cut through the tension as he called out to Wanling and the silver-haired girl. The falcon's dead. Come over, let's split the loot. Wanling and the silver-haired girl turned toward him, stunned by how effortlessly he had handled the situation. Jinshun, ever calm, glanced at the scattered treasure, as if this was all routine. On the other side, the blood fiend leader's face turned pale. His arrogance drained away, replaced by fury. He pointed a shaking finger at Jinshun, his voice trembling with rage. You dare steal my boss kill? You must be tired of living. His eyes blazed with hatred as he barked orders to his guild members. Kill him. If this guy can take down a chi refining boss alone, he'll be a serious threat later. Whoever kills him gets rewarded. Take his gear and ruin his leveling progress. One of his guild members, Fengshan, a body cultivator in the chi refining initial phase, smirked and lunged at Jinshun. I'll take him down. Fengshan was brimming with confidence, chi swirling around his right fist. I'm a UFC fighter in real life, and my fist carries the weight of 20 years of training. Let's see you dodge this. He roared as he unleashed a powerful punch aimed straight at Jinshun's back, fully expecting his strength to overwhelm him. But to his shock, Jinshun moved with the ease of a seasoned veteran, dodging the attack effortlessly. Fengshan stared at Jinshun in disbelief, his mind racing to comprehend how Jinshun had dodged his supposedly unbeatable attack. But before he could even process what had happened, Jinshun wasted no time. With a single, powerful sword strike, he delivered a critical hit of 545 damage. Fengshan's health bar dropped to half in an instant. Jinshun, having spent 9 years as a mage cultivator in his past life, was no stranger to sneak attacks. This weak punch? Child's play. While Fengshan stood there, eyes wide in shock, Jinshun leaped forward with ruthless precision. His sword flashed once more, slashing across Fengshan's neck. 455 damage, an instant kill. Fengshan's body collapsed as a sword burial mound appeared before Jinshun, revealing Fengshan's loot. The blood fiends watching gasped. How is this possible? That much damage, and he didn't even use a skill. One whispered, stunned. Another stammered, is he cheating? Yet another nervously murmured, this game doesn't even have cheats, right? Unfazed by their shock, Jinshun calmly collected Fengshan's loot, tossed it into his storage bag, and threw the remaining scraps to the ground. He tightened his grip on his sword, his eyes cold and sharp as he faced the blood fiends. His voice dripped with lethal intent. I didn't come here to start trouble with you, but that doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. I don't care about your guild wars. But if you come after me, you'd better be ready to face the consequences. The air grew tense as 4 blood fiends, believing they could overpower a chi refining final phase cultivator like Jinshun with their numbers, charged at him. Jinshun didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his expression unbothered. Just as they closed in, the one leading the charge hesitated. Something was wrong. Before they could react, Jinshun unleashed his martial skill, Frost Moon. His sword cut through the air with blinding speed, the first swing decapitating 2 of the attackers instantly, their health bars dropping to 0. The second swing followed swiftly, slicing through the remaining 2 blood fiends before they even realized what was happening. In seconds, all 4 lay dead, their bodies vanishing as 4 more sword burial mounds appeared. Jin Chen didn't break a sweat, his sword now pulsing with a faint blue glow. He calmly wiped the blood from his blade with a practiced flick. Facing the blood fiend leader, Jin Chen's voice was icy. "So, what's it going to be? You still want to come after me?" The blood fiend leader, visibly shaken by Jin Chen's sheer power, gritted his teeth. He couldn't afford to lose any more members. With a reluctant scowl, he barked, "Retreat. We'll deal with him later." At his command, the blood fiends scattered, fleeing the forest in a hurry, their bravado shattered by Jin Chen's overwhelming strength. The silver-haired woman approached Jin Chen, clasping her hands together in a formal salute. "Thank you for your help," she said sincerely. Jin Chen, sheathing his sword, turned to face her. "No need to thank me. It wasn't a big deal," he responded nonchalantly, brushing off the gratitude. His gaze shifted to the loot that had dropped from the Falcon boss. "By the way, the boss is dead, and the loot is all here." The loot was impressive: spiritual grade, Guanjing heavy spear, in replenishing herb, spiritual grade martial technique, ice spike, spiritual grade skill, rising dragon break, and spiritual grade equipment, storm gauntlet. Jin Chen then raised his hand toward the silver-haired woman. "As per our agreement, the in replenishing herb belongs to me, and I get to choose 1 additional item. Any problem with that?" His voice was calm but firm. The silver-haired woman, taken aback by the sheer volume of loot, hesitated for a moment. "I've never seen a boss drop so many items," she whispered in disbelief. Wanling, standing nearby, echoed her surprise. 6 items from a single boss? What kind of insane luck is this? After a moment of awe, the silver-haired woman composed herself and approached Jin Chen again. "Mr. Lin Jin Chen, you were the one who killed the falcon by yourself. You have every right to claim all the loot. It belongs to you." Jin Chen shook his head, waving off her offer. "We had a deal. You fought the falcon first, and I've already gained a lot by taking the first kill. I'll just pick 1 item, as we agreed." The silver-haired woman exchanged a glance with Wanling, who nodded. Wanling then opened a money transfer interface and sent a large sum to Jin Chen's account. A notification popped up on Jin Chen's screen. 5 million yuan had just been deposited into his bank account, bringing his total balance to 5.2 million yuan. Jin Chen blinked, momentarily taken aback. This woman is really loaded, he thought, his mind racing at the thought of someone so casually sending 5 million without hesitation. As Jin Chen prepared to leave, the silver-haired woman stepped forward, raising her hand for a handshake. "Wait, I haven't introduced myself yet," she said with a smile. "My name is Zhang Luoyu, president of Moon Shadow Guild." Jin Chen accepted the handshake, his grip firm but polite. Lin Jin Chen, a lone wanderer. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and something flickered in Jin Chen's memory. Zhang Luoyu. I've heard that name somewhere before, he thought, his brow furrowing slightly as the scene lingered. As Jin Chen focused, a flash of recognition hit him. He finally remembered. In his previous life, he had seen Zhang Luoyu's name on the rankings. She had been the second most powerful cultivator in 8 wastelands, just after him. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. Zhang Luoyu was the daughter of the richest man in Chonghai City. In the present, Jin Chen, still shaking her hand, suddenly grabbed it with both hands. "Let's soak up some of that prosperity," he thought to himself, smiling inwardly. Zhang Luoyu, clearly taken aback by his sudden action, blushed, her cheeks flushed pink. Nearby, Wanling coughed awkwardly, interrupting the moment. "Master Lin, that's enough. Stop taking advantage of her," she scolded, arms crossed. Jin Chen immediately released Zhang Luoyu's hand, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry. I got lost in thought just now. Didn't mean anything by it." He smiled, trying to play it off, though a hint of embarrassment showed. Zhang Luoyu, still confused, raised an eyebrow, looking at Wanling for some clarity. She had noticed that Wanling had tried to get closer to Jin Chen before, but he had always seemed uninterested. She had assumed he was just focused on his career, but now it was becoming clear. He simply didn't find her attractive enough. Jin Chen, eager to escape the situation, waved his hand casually. "Well, since everything's settled, I'll take my leave." He turned and walked away, his confident yet carefree attitude leaving Zhang Luoyu and Wanling speechless. Both women watched him in silence, his charm lingering in the air. Zhang Luoyu, still blushing, closed her eyes and murmured, Your friend seems like a pretty nice person. Wanling scoffed, crossing her arms. Nice? He just blatantly took advantage of you. It's obvious he has ulterior motives. Inside, however, she was torn. What's wrong with Jiang Luoyu? She thought, frustration bubbling up. Is she also falling for him now? Jiang Luoyu turned away, refusing to meet Wanling's gaze. Don't talk nonsense about Master Lin, she scolded. As they began walking back, Jiang Luoyu changed the subject. Give a bonus of 50,000 yuan to each guild member who participated in today's battle. Consider it a celebration. While they left, another figure lurked in the shadows, Lu Xiazi, the most popular female streamer on the national server. She had been watching everything unfold quietly. As the others disappeared from view, she sighed softly. Pulling up her stream interface, Lu Xiazi raised both arms and spoke to her viewers with a playful grin. Well, folks, not only did Xiazi take you through an epic guild war today, but you also got to witness a top-tier pro player in action. Her voice was full of excitement as she continued, don't forget to hit that follow button. Meanwhile, on Xiazi's stream screen, messages flooded the chat. Some viewers admired her beauty, while others were puzzled about the mysterious expert who just wiped out the enemies. Is that guy an NPC? He doesn't act like a normal player. One viewer quickly chimed in. Didn't you all see the server announcement? His name is Lin Jinshan. He's the one who killed the beginner village boss. As the chat buzzed with speculation, Xiazi placed both hands over her chest, gazing dreamily. Master Lin took down a boss in the final phase of Qi refining with such ease. His strength is incredible and he's quite handsome too. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she gushed over Jinshan. Then, her eyes sparkled with excitement as she made a bold declaration. To all my viewers, I'm officially declaring that Lin Jinshan is the #1 master of 8 wastelands. She leaned forward toward the screen, her voice playful and coy. From today onwards, Lin Jinshan is my idol. No, my crush. Meanwhile, outside the game, a man sat in front of his screen, watching the stream with growing frustration. His face twisted in anger as Xiazi praised Jinshan. He slammed his fist on the table, cursing under his breath. That damn Jinshan. Not only did he kill my guildmates and steal our boss kill, now he's trying to get famous off our backs. This man was the Blood Fiend Guildmaster, the very one whose plans Jinshan had ruined earlier in the Conglang Medicine Valley. His anger boiling over, the Blood Fiend Guildmaster stood up abruptly, his face dark with fury. He grabbed the vase on his desk and shattered it against the wall. Jinshan, if we cross paths again, I'll make sure you regret ever messing with the Blood Fiend Guild. His voice dripped with venom as he vowed revenge. Back in the game, Jinshan had returned to the Tianyan sword sect to submit his completed mission. He stepped into Elder Tianqing's chamber, holding the Yin replenishing herb. Bowing slightly, he greeted the Elder. Elder Tianqing, I have completed the mission and retrieved the herb, Jinshan reported respectfully. Elder Tianqing, clearly surprised by Jinshan's quick return, turned to face him. That was fast. Place the herb on the table. He gave Jinshan a once-over, his eyes narrowing slightly. You've helped this old man greatly. As promised, here is your reward. With a flick of his hand, Elder Tianqing tossed a small box toward Jinshan. Jinshan caught it in midair, his grip steady as he opened it. The game system chimed in, notifying him of the rewards. Spirit-grade attribute pills, 3 pills that increase a random combat attribute by 1 to 5 points. The specific attribute and amount are random. Spirit-grade Harmonious Wind Bracelet. Increases the wearer's speed by 5%, dodge capability by 8%, and reduces body skill cooldowns by 10%. Jinshan's eyes gleamed at the sight of the rewards, but he quickly composed himself. Thank you, Great Elder, he said with a polite bow. Then, Jinshan hesitated for a moment before asking, Elder Tianqing, if I may be so bold, have you found the formula for the Eternal Youth Pill? From his previous life, Jinshan remembered that Elder Tianqing had tried and failed 99 times before finally crafting the Eternal Youth Pill. A thought crossed his mind. If I give him the formula now, could I gain extra goodwill? The Elder, clearly frustrated by his repeated failures, looked up at the sky with a heavy sigh. His voice held a tinge of resignation as he spoke. I've tried dozens of times, but always failed. Just then, Elder Tianqing seemed to realize something, turning sharply to Jinshan with a suspicious look. Why do you ask, boy? Do you know something about the Eternal Youth Pill? Jinshan, with a casual hand under his chin, smirked and replied, I remember reading something in an old alchemy book. He paused for dramatic effect. The ingredients for the Eternal Youth Pill: 3 grams of powdered stone, 2 feathers of a wild phoenix, 6 grains of peony flower pollen, and 3 plants of replenishing herbs. Elder Tianqing's eyes widened in utter shock. His body trembled slightly, unable to believe what he had just heard. You had such a miraculous encounter, he gasped, off-filling his voice. Jin Shin played along, maintaining his calm, while Elder Tianqing, eager and desperate, quickly gathered his composure. Watch from the sidelines as I refine the Eternal Youth Pill. Guide me if the proportions seem off. Jin Shin nodded, still maintaining his composed facade, and Elder Tianqing began the refining process. The room filled with the sounds of crackling fire and bubbling potions as the elder worked his alchemy. Minutes passed, and the pill began to condense inside the alchemy furnace. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the lid of the furnace exploded open. Both men were caught off guard. Elder Tianqing's heart sank, fearing yet another failure. Jin Shun's brows furrowed in confusion, wondering what had gone wrong this time. Then, unexpectedly, 2 pills shot out from the furnace, hovering in mid-air. Elder Tianqing's face lit up with joy. I did it. I've finally refined the Eternal Youth Pill, he exclaimed, overwhelmed with happiness. Without hesitation, Elder Tianqing took one of the pills and handed it to Jin Shun. This is your reward for your invaluable help, he said with a deep bow of gratitude. Jin Shin accepted the pill, and a system notification flashed before his eyes. A Earth Grade, Eternal Youth Pill. Increases innate charm permanently by 5 points. If gifted to the opposite sex, it increases their favorability toward you by 10 to 20 points. Jin Shun's eyes widened in disbelief. This pill, it's extremely rare. Even with the recipe, refining it would be near impossible without a 9th grade alchemy master. He marveled at Elder Tianqing's generosity. With a deep bow, he thanked the elder. You've been most generous, great elder. I'll take my leave now. As Jin Shun turned to leave, his mind was already racing. If I gift this to my master, her favorability toward me will skyrocket. He could feel the excitement bubbling inside him, but just as he was about to rush out, Elder Tianqing called out, stopping him in his tracks. Wait! The elder's voice echoed in the chamber. Jin Shin paused, turning back with curiosity. Is there something else, elder? Elder Tianqing, his eyes gleaming with newfound interest, asked, Do you enjoy the art of alchemy, young man? Jin Shin blinked, unsure of where this was leading. If you do, Elder Tianqing continued, I would like to take you in as my disciple and teach you the true art of alchemy. A game notification instantly popped up in front of Jin Shan's vision. Elder Tianqing wants to accept you as his disciple. Are you willing? Jin Shin stared at the notification, his thoughts racing. Why does Elder Tianqing want me as his disciple? Is it because of the formula I gave him? He hesitated for a moment, weighing his options. As Jin Shan stood contemplating Elder Tianqing's offer, the atmosphere in the alchemy hall shifted. A powerful presence entered, filling the space with a commanding aura. Jin Shin turned, startled, as a figure stepped through the doorway. Sect leader Long Fian herself. Her cold gaze swept across the room before landing on the elder. Do you have the heart to take away Fian's only disciple, elder? Long Fian's voice was calm, but it carried an unmistakable edge. Jin Shun's heart skipped a beat, his mind spinning in confusion. Master? He gasped silently, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Why is she here? I never intended to agree to Elder Tianqing's request. I hope Master doesn't misunderstand. Elder Tianqing, clearly flustered, rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. Sect Master, you're mistaken. I have no intention of stealing your disciple. He chuckled nervously, glancing at Jin Shin. It's just that, your disciple is quite talented in alchemy. I admire him so much that I simply wanted to teach him the art. Lung Fian's sharp eyes softened just a fraction. She nodded in acknowledgement. So, it's like that? My apologies for misunderstanding. Jin Shin silently exhaled in relief, his racing heart finally calming down. Thank goodness, she's not angry. He tried to maintain his composure, wiping the sweat from his forehead. But just as he relaxed, Long Fian's voice cut through his thoughts once again. However, her tone shifted slightly, and her gaze bore down on Jin Shin. Fian believes that this stubborn disciple of mine is far more talented in cultivation. She paused, her words like ice. What our sword sect needs are powerful immortals, not alchemists. Don't you agree, Uncle Tianqing? Her words pierced Jin Shin like a sword, making him shudder. Why is Master looking at me like that? Is she angry with me? His heart raced once again, and he dared not meet her gaze. Elder Tianqing, sensing the tension, nodded quickly. Yes, yes. Of course, Sect Master. You're absolutely right. He let out a forced laugh. It's settled then. When Jin Chan's cultivation improves, I'll be honored to teach him the art of alchemy. Lung Fian's cold stare lingered on Jin Chen a moment longer before she turned back to Elder Tianqing. There's no need for apologies, Uncle Tianqing. She smirked faintly. When my disciple reaches an appropriate level, I'll let him take you as his master. Jin Chun's stomach dropped. Appropriate level? What does she mean by that? He gulped nervously, sensing that his master was far from pleased. Elder Tianqing, clearly eager to escape the situation, quickly excused himself. Well then, I'll get back to my alchemy. Sect Master, disciple, I'll leave you two to sort things out. With a hurried wave, he turned and disappeared from the hall. Once Elder Tianqing was gone, Long Fian shifted her full attention to Jin Chun, her gaze as sharp as ever. Follow me, she ordered, her voice leaving no room for debate. There's something I need to discuss with you at my palace. Jin Chin's throat went dry, beads of sweat forming once again. Yes, master, he stammered, bowing his head. As he followed her out of the hall, Jin Chun couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that his master had something serious in store for him. Her words, they felt like a knife, he thought anxiously. Is she going to settle a score with me?